it's time to do an oil change, and a rear differential change, as well as an oil filter change. I've seen a handful of videos about the Super Tenere oil change, but I haven't seen anyone use the by-the-book method. So that's what I'm going to do today and show you guys exactly what the book says to do, giving you guys part numbers for everything involved. So stay tuned. The first step after you've heated your bike up, and the manual says heating your bike up is running it until it reaches around 160 degrees Fahrenheit. After that, you come back, put it on its center stand on a level surface, and crack open the fill port. And check out the O-ring. Make sure the O-ring's in good condition. If it looks pitted or cracked or non-pliable, then replace it. This one looks pretty good. I'm gonna wipe away from the hole there, so that way when we put oil in a little while, we don't drag anything inadvertently into the crankcase. And I'm just gonna set that back in and give it like maybe quarter turn in, just to hold it there. We want air to go in to take up the negative pressure when we release the drain bolts. So that way it doesn't glug whenever the oil comes out. We want the oil to come out smooth. Now it's time to open up the drain ports to both the crankcase and the oil tank. This is a semi-dry sump system, so there's 2 oil plugs. Take a 12 millimeter. Let me get these vent hoses out of the way so you can see a little better. 12 millimeter. Lefty loosey. Ooh. Oh, need to open my pan. I've been caught by that before. And the reason you want to get the bike hot is so the oil is real thin and flows easy out of the bike. If it flows fast, if there's any particulates in there, they'll grab them and run out a little easier. I just like to set mine on the edge of the pan. Kind of off camera here. Let's put them over here. We're going to clean them before we put them back in anyway. While we're waiting for that last bit of oil to drain out of there, we can go ahead and remove this front cowling or engine guard, depending on what manual you're talking about. We'll take a 5 millimeter hex and a 10 millimeter socket. Not a lot of torque on these. There's an identical set on the opposite side. I hold my finger underneath there so I don't drop it. So that's it, just a little flange nut. And a bolt. The one on the other side is right underneath the Y pipe. And then the engine guard just pulls forward off of these studs right here. And now would be a good time to clean it if you wanted to. As you can see, mine's kind of dirty, not too bad, but on the inside, a little bit of garbage in there. We'll clean that up nice and pretty before we put it back in. With the engine guard removed, you have easy access to the oil filter. What I like to do is take a rag and wipe down the filter where it meets the crankcase and make sure that there's no dirt or any grime that's going to go in there when I pop it loose. All right, now here's where the part numbers start to come in. This is not a Yamaha part number, but an Autocraft part number. AC1093. It's actually a Toyota oil filter wrench. Fits the Yamaha brand perfectly. So with our drain pan repositioned to where we can catch all 3 holes, we're going to loosen this filter up just a little bit to where it starts leaking. Just like that. And then a little more. And a little more. Until it stops leaking. For the most part, there'll still be little drips. And that's the best way I've found to remove an oil filter without getting oil all over the place. Just kind of tilt and catch it like that. And dump that into our pan there. The next step is to put in the new filter. And like I said, we'll be going the OEM route. So we're going to use the Yamaha branded filter. And let's look for a part number. Here we go. Got a part number on there. 5GH13440 TAC 60. Now the manual says that we need to lubricate this O-ring. It looks like it already came pre-lubricated, but we're gonna do just like the manual says and lubricate it anyway. What I like to do is take a little bit of the prescribed motor oil. Again, OEM route, we're using the SAE 10W40 from Yamaha. Now, is this oil better than any other oils that are on the market? Yeah, I don't know. Probably not. However, oh, we got a little bit too much in there. We'll just pour it back in. Oh no, it got soaked up. It's no big deal. And I like to take a clean finger and a glove and go in there, grab a little bit of fresh oil, rub the rim with fresh oil. And what that does is it lubricates this O-ring so it slips a little bit against the crankcase when you go to tighten it down. Otherwise, it'll roll on itself and create these little voids and you'll be spewing oil. Not every time, but a lot of times if you don't check that seal. Also, make sure the old seal comes off with the old filter. I've been bitten by that before too. So put that on. This actually does have a torque specification. So we're gonna come back with all the torque specs and put everything back. All right, so we're gonna set our torque wrench to 12 foot-pounds. That's what this is, 12 foot-pounds. that's it. 12 foot-pounds. Now that we've got the oil filter back on, we can put the cowling back on. So I cleaned it up a little bit, not too much. Just guide it on these two studs, the stud here and the stud back here. I'm gonna drop my drain plugs there. Take our bolt from before, it goes down below. And you just start them by hand. They all have torque specs and I'll list them momentarily. Line that up. There we go. Just run them in with your finger a little bit. And then our flange nut from before. And they should go on real easy with just your fingertips. If they don't go on real easy, spin them counterclockwise until they click. You'll feel it click and it'll kind of straighten up, and then try again to go forward with them. And by forward, I mean clockwise. We'll go to the other side and do the same. Okay, we're back with our torque wrench. This time we're going to use an inch-pound torque wrench, because the engine guard nut and the engine guard bolt are both 3.3 foot-pounds, which translates to 39.6 inch-pounds. First, I'm going to start with the hex down here. You'll feel it click once it reaches torque. There it is right there. We'll switch back over to 10. Same torque spec up here. There's the click. Now we'll go around to the other side and do the same thing. There it is. Switch over to Allen or hex. There it is right there. Now the engine guard is installed with the correct torque. All right, now it's time to put our drain bolts back in. To do that, we're going to take both drain bolts and we're going to take the old gasket off. This is the gasket, little copper gasket. It's recommended you change these each time you change your oil. And there are two of them. And as promised, I have the Yamaha part number right here. It is a 90430 TAC 12213. And it takes two. So clean off our bolts too with a little bit of carb cleaner or brake clean. Clean our bolt there. One more. blow them off with a bit of compressed air, if you got it. Put them on a clean rag. Lint free, of course. You don't want any lint in your oil. We'll take our clean with our new gasket. And it's very important you don't cross thread these. See, I go backwards until I feel it click and then run forward, just fingered. You should be able to turn it very, very easy, just like that. Don't even bother putting a wrench on it until you have them all the way down. Same thing with the second. Clean bolt, new gasket. And that's it. And both of those have the same torque spec, which is 14 foot-pounds. We'll tighten these to spec. Same on the back. After you're done torquing down the drain bolts, come behind them with a rag and make sure they're dry all around the plug. So that way later on when we fill, you can see if they're leaking or not. Nice and dry. Now we're ready to fill the bike back up with some fresh oil. So we're going to take that drain plug all the way out. Oh, excuse me, not drain plug, fill plug. Take that all the way out. We're going to drop in a clean funnel. Take our O.E.M. oil. The correct amount of oil for this bike is 4.2 liters total, 3.1 liters without a filter, and 3.4 liters with a filter. So I've got my 0.4 already measured out here, so I'm gonna put my 0.4 in. Okay, now that we're done, we can take the funnel out, put our cleaned off fill plug back in. And this is the only thing that doesn't have a torque spec. This is just finger tight, or pretty tight. You know, don't put it on with a wrench or anything, just use your hand. And then wipe everything down. Start the bike up, check for leaks. All right, now that we're done with the oil, we're gonna go to the back and do the final drive, or the rear differential, whatever you want to call it. We'll change out the final gear oil. And I have the Yamaha part for that, which is 214-119801. And it looks a little bit different. It almost looks like an exhaust gasket. So we have that, and we also have the O.E.M. specified gear oil, which is Yamaha exclusive oil. I don't know what makes it exclusive. It's only a few cents more than the regular stuff, but the Super Tenere does call for the exclusive type of lubricant. Now that we're back at the final drive, we've got a fill port and a drain port. And I like to go for a quick little ride to heat this thing up for the same reasons you heat up the engine oil. First, we'll start by taking the fill plug out with a 6mm hex. And remove it completely. And check the gasket. The gasket was installed correctly. Next, we're going to switch over to a 17mm. There's a magnet on the end of this. You want to inspect that for any kind of metal. It looks okay. There's a little bit on there. That's normal. That's a normal amount. So get a clean rag and wipe that off. Or you can take a white rag and really see the stark contrast. But if you just wipe it down a little bit, you can see the metal fragments that remain. We'll clean that off real good before we put it back in. Kind of pinch it to pull the metal bits off of there. I just kind of use my fingernails to fit in that groove there with the rag in between. Get that sucker super clean. When it's time to put the drain plug back in, you want to remove the old crush washer and pay attention to which side is flat. There'll be a flat side and kind of a groove side. So as that comes off of there, the groove side's on top. And we'll take our brand new Yamaha 214-119801 gasket. We can see that it's got that indentation all the way around it. So that'll go face up just like before. Wanted to grab to that magnet there. So you see how much taller that is than the original. That's why you need to replace these every time, especially in the back. Maybe not so much for the crankcase. You can get by one or two times reusing the same one, but the manual calls for it to be replaced every single time. So that's what we're doing today, and we can clearly see how much this one's squished down compared to, or at least I can see that. I don't know how well it'll show up, but that's pretty flat. Same as before, we're gonna go in counterclockwise first, catch the groove, and then go clockwise, just finger. Very easy. Both the drain plug and the fill plug are torqued to 17 foot-pounds. So this time we're going to use a click torque wrench. Pretty easy to use. You loosen it up here, dial it into the torque that you need, tighten it up. And we'll tighten this down to 17 foot-pounds with a 17 millimeter socket. 17, 17. That's it right there. The next step is to fill the differential back up with the prescribed gear oil. In this case, it's Yamaha exclusive oil. So we're going to take a funnel with a tube, open up our precious gear oil. It's really not that bad. You don't have to change it that often. I'll go over all the intervals at the end. This oil popped open. There we go. It's almost impossible to overfill this because you do it till where it's level with the bottom of the brim here. I'll put up a picture somewhere where this goes. And then 0.2 liters of gear oil. Was it 0.2? Yeah, 0.2. Well, that's it right there. See it start running out the bottom of the brim. You're done. Take a little clean section of the rag with a finger and wipe away from the hole. You don't want to knock any grit or dirt in there. For the top bolt, fill plug, we do the same thing. Change the gasket out. So there's the old gasket. Another new gasket. And here again, we can see how thick the old one is versus the new one. Big difference. So with our cleaned off fill plug, we'll put the new gasket on with that little rib facing up, the flat facing down. Just like that. And then we'll start it by hand the same way. I like to take my 6 millimeter hex here and kind of put it on first so I can help get it straight. Back it up, hear that click, then go forward clockwise just by hand, very easy. Now that we've got both of our plugs in, both torqued down to 17 foot-pounds, we're filled with gear oil, we're good to go. And that pretty much concludes the OEM style oil change.